Bill's best thinking got me to AA, and I arrived with my worst thinking. It was not my best thinking that got me to AA. Literally, that is survival mode. It is as ridiculous as it would be as if I broke my leg today and I hop into a doctor's office, and the doctor tells me, your best walking got you here. No, it's full-on bullshit. It is bullshit that I got to AA with my best thinking. Hello, welcome to Sobriety Bestie Podcast. Super excited you're here today for another great episode on the AA doublespeak of your best thinking got you here. Have you heard that in the rooms, 12-step rooms, AA rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, or other 12-step fellowships? Your best thinking got you here. Actually, I'm really curious if they say that outside of AA too, like in NA or something. So let us know in the comments if you heard that your best thinking got you here. Also, what did you interpret that to mean? To me, what that means is that therefore, because my best thinking got me to cult religion, to AA, that I can't trust my thinking. That was part of the indoctrination to position my obedience, my surrender to the authority of my sponsor, the group, my higher power. It is to position me as, inferior or incapable or of needing 12-step, needing Alcoholics Anonymous. And so I wanted to explore this topic of your best thinking got you here. I just made a coffee. I love making videos in the morning because I get to drink coffee with you, and that's totally a vibe. Okay, so I want to talk about what my thinking was like when I got to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I got sober September 2009. I was in AA for 10 years, and I left AA it's coming up on 5.5 years ago now. And this line, it seemed to make sense to me, this your best thinking got you here. So when they said it to me, some of the things kind of made sense. And now that I see them with a better eye, I'm like, oh, that is doublespeak. Has anyone read or seen 1984? I still need to read the book. I watched the movie, but it's called Doublespeak. And it's when you position things as, label them as the opposite of what they are. I think Hitler had his head propaganda person, is his name Goebbels. His title was public enlightenment. So that's an example of doublespeak. So AA is framing the thinking that I had at the worst time of my life as my best thinking. And I, looking back in hindsight with some wisdom now and outside of AA ideology and having deconstructed a lot of it, I would look at that as my worst thinking. Let me know if you were having some of your worst thinking when you arrived at AA. So no, it is not my best thinking. It's literally my freaking worst thinking. And so I wanted to explain why that was my worst thinking. So my story, and I think there's going to be a lot of similarities with all of us. A lot of us show up to sobriety or go through addiction because we're masking pain. It's not everyone's story. There's all different reasons why we drank, or reasons what alcohol did do for us or seemed to do for us. So I had been sexually abused in childhood many times. That left my nervous system dysregulated. So when we're dysregulated, we're not thinking as clearly. There's parts of our brain that we're not having full access to. I'm autistic and ADHD, so I have social differences. I was drinking to mask my social differences. The drinking put me in harm's way more often than probably I would have been if I wasn't drinking, and had me not trust my judgment. And so the drinking did lead to more traumas. There was more traumas that I endured as an adult while I was drinking, including sexual assault, rape. And so, and also a car accident. I wasn't drinking in the car, but I had a car accident. And then a month later, I was on that same road on the I-5 driving from San Francisco to Los Angeles. And I relived that car accident in my head. I almost died in that car accident, right? I was going 70 miles per hour, hydroplaned in a rainstorm into the center divider of this freeway and spun out. And I thought I was going to die. A month later, I'm on that road. I relive that accident in my head, and I think I'm going to die. And I'm hyperventilating and I can't breathe. And I'm having my first full-blown panic attack at 70 miles per hour in the fast lane. So then I get off the freeway, and I'm still it took me 15 minutes to calm down, get out of that. It was quite scary. And so then I had a phobia of freeways, didn't drive again on a freeway. So that's not my best thinking. So I didn't drive again on the freeway. The psychiatrist got me on benzos to help with my now panic disorder, freeway phobia, anxiety disorder, social anxiety, all of the anxious things. And so basically, I was medicating my dysregulated nervous system and my traumas with alcohol and with benzos, now taking the benzos as prescribed by my doctor. But they weren't resolving what was going on. They were more like masking it and trying to stabilize, I would say, my dysregulated nervous system instead of actually allowing me to cope with it, process it, or even in the case of freeway phobia, the way that I got over that was in sobriety. I slowly, like exposure therapy. So I slowly started driving on the freeway, like one exit at a time. Before I even did that, I went through this tunnel first by my house called the Broadway Tunnel in San Francisco. Then I did the Golden Gate Bridge because you can't pull over, right? So these things freaked me out in my nervous system. And I just built up my tolerance and I expanded my comfort zone by directly going into the thing that I was afraid of. That's what helped resolve it. So anyways, I had all these phobias and fears and anxiety disorders by the time I got to AA. Alcohol changes our brain. We know that. And so I would say I had an injured brain. I look at a lot of like alcohol addiction as a brain injury because alcohol is changing the structure and the function of our brain. So I showed up with my brain that had been drinking for a long time. That's not my best thinking. I also didn't have a lot of coping skills to deal with a dysregulated nervous system or to deal with my emotional regulation or anything like that. So yeah, I showed up at AA after going to 30 days of rehab. I was afraid I was going to die because I almost died at the end of my drinking. I had a moment where I looked in the mirror and I knew I was about to, it seemed to me like my spirit was about to leave my body. I looked like an empty shell and it terrified me. And I was in rehab within a week from that day. So I showed up at rehab still afraid I was going to die. I was in survival mode hardcore. I just paid all this money for rehab. I just done 30 days of rehab and it was expensive. So I was afraid to blow money to have that be wasted if I drank again. I was afraid I wouldn't have any sober friends. I didn't know anybody. I was afraid of dying. So I showed up in fear. And what do we know about fear is going to have our brain functioning and our thinking, therefore, functioning differently. So I'm not a neuroscientist, but I do love studying the brain. So just very like loosely, like our prefrontal cortex is right here. This is our rational, critical thinking, logical thinking, long-term thinking. And then our emotional center is more back here. It is our like amygdala. It is, I've heard it called our emotional center, right? Like, for example, when I was in that car accident and I hydroplaned off the freeway at 70 miles per hour in the rainstorm, it wasn't my prefrontal cortex that saved my life. It was my amygdala. It was my emotional brain. So I just, instincts, right? I just grabbed the wheel because I'm about going to go into oncoming traffic and I yanked the wheel and then I started spinning out in the center divider. And so that is not a time when we're in fight or flight to be thinking about our long-term plans. That is about surviving the moment. We are in our sympathetic nervous system. Our parasympathetic nervous system is off. Sympathetic is on, fight, flight, freeze, or even fawn. It's not a time for parasympathetic, which would be resting, digesting, ovulating. Clearly, I don't need to be ovulating or resting or digesting while I'm trying to save my life on the freeway while I'm spinning out, right? And so when I'm in that thinking, when we are in that thinking, the sympathetic dominant thinking, when our sympathetic nervous system is activated, fight, flight, we have the adrenaline and the cortisol and 30 other stress chemicals released into our system. That is not our best thinking. That is our survival thinking. So this is from ChatGPT, who I call Athena, by the way. Do you have a name for ChatGPT? Because ChatGPT just sounds like a mouthful. So I call her, yes, she's gendered. I call her Athena because Athena is the goddess of wisdom. Let me know if you have a ChatGPT bestie name in the comments. So here's what Athena said. Best thinking is when an individual has access to their full cognitive capacities, where the prefrontal cortex is engaged, emotional and threat systems like the amygdala are not overwhelmed, and regulation mechanisms like emotional regulation and stress control are working. In that state, you can weigh long-term versus short-term consequences, consider values, foresee options, reflect, plan, make nuanced decisions, tolerate ambiguity, and choose rather than react. So yeah, so that's the best thinking. I was not anywhere near best thinking when I walked into Alcoholics Anonymous, but Alcoholics Anonymous is going to take what I would consider some of my worst thinking, like my worst mental health, and brand that as my best thinking as a way to tell me that I should essentially abdicate or surrender my thinking to the groupthink, to my sponsor and the groupthink and AA ideology. It's quite controlling, manipulative, and fucked up. I would actually say that since AA is I don't know. I kind of think that like Bill wrote AA, but that's not true. It was really Bill and the other people. The other 82 it wasn't really 100. It was really more like 82 members in the beginning. Bill and the other members, they wrote the big book and the program. A lot of the culture of AA might have spun out of Bill's hands, but let's just say the way that I think about it now is Bill's best thinking got me to AA. I arrived with my worst thinking, and also Bill's best thinking got me to AA. What do I mean by that? Bill, a salesman from the 1930s, bless his heart, could not stop drinking. His friend, Ebby Thatcher, converted him into the cult religion of the Oxford group and proselytized for a while until Bill finally was in a hospital and he was very vulnerable because he couldn't really leave. He was in treatment at the town's hospital and Ebby kept coming in and other people came in too and took turns and Bill's on belladonna treatment, so he's not in his right mind and he's getting recruited into the Oxford group cult religion. And then he is able to maintain his sobriety by trying to recruit other people into the Oxford group cult religion for the first 2.5 years of his sobriety. And then he spun it off and then he rebranded it as Alcoholics Anonymous. Same core steps, 12 steps. Those were principles in the Oxford group. They're obviously religious principles. It's a religious conversion program masquerading as a recovery program. That might be like another doublespeak-ish kind of a thing, or just flat out like misleading, inaccurate, a lie. Yeah. So Bill took his ideas about sobriety, which were really cult religion ideas, a religious conversion program, and he got that into public consciousness through himself, his own efforts, through celebrities, through Marty Mann, an AA member in the 1940s who spent the entire decade or more going and getting AA into institutions, into Hollywood, into media, into doctors' offices, and really pushing this idea of Bill's ideas of this disease model, and also Dr. Silkworth's ideas too of this fatal progressive disease. Because Dr. Silkworth told Bill, you got to let them know that they're going to die. They're not going to want God unless you tell them that they have a forever disease and that they're going to die if they don't do your program. They don't want God, but if you tell them that they have to get God in order to live, then they'll listen. So that's a bit of the history. So Bill's best thinking got me to AA. I knew about AA before I walked in the door. That's how I knew it was a door to walk through, because I had already seen movies, Hollywood TV shows, Netflix documentaries, whatever, where AA was positioned as the way. AA, still in my mind, I believe that AA is essentially positioned as a viable, if not the only path to sobriety. I don't see a lot of movies, or really any, that are promoting other methods of sobriety. They're promoting AA. So if you watch a TV show and someone's getting sober, they're using AA as the way. So it's deeply ingrained into our society thanks to Bill. So that's Bill's best thinking that infiltrated our culture through all the propaganda and all the PR efforts. It's basically the same thing. So Bill's best thinking got me to AA. Bill's best thinking got me to AA, and I arrived with my worst thinking. It was not my best thinking that got me to AA. My best thinking literally is when I am regulated, when I am not panicked, and when I'm not in anxiety disorders, and I'm not withdrawing from benzos or from alcohol. My best thinking is when I'm clear, I am centered, I have time to think things through, I have time to reflect. My best thinking is nothing like when I walked into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. Literally, that is survival mode. It is as ridiculous to position me as having my best thinking when I got there as it would be as if I broke my leg today and I stumble, hop into a doctor's office, and the doctor tells me, your best walking got you here. No, it's full-on bullshit. It is bullshit that I got to AA with my best thinking. Just as much as if I got to a doctor's office with a broken leg and hopped in there, that's my best walking. No, it's not my best walking. But that the doctor's saying through doublespeak, which is a manipulation tactic, through doublespeak, this is your best walking. You are forever going to need a cast. You're going to need to come here every day and give your time away, your energy away, your life away for the cause of the cast because your best walking got you here. No, it's baloney. My best thinking did not get me to Alcoholics Anonymous. Do you believe that your best thinking got you to AA? Because I believe that Bill's best thinking and my worst thinking got me to Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm so interested to hear what you think about this topic. Let us know in the comments what you think about this. Your best thinking got you here. What did I leave out? It's obviously highly manipulative to convince somebody that they shouldn't trust their thoughts. What the fuck? So also, if you would like to deprogram in community, we have a group called the Deprogram Lounge. Everything in there is free. There's a lot of resources in there called the Escape Kit to help you deprogram. There's also a group, and we have deprogram Zooms and a deprogram book club. It is a whole vibe. I will drop a link below for the Deprogram Lounge. You are invited to come vibe with us. All right. Some of my best thinking was when I left AA, honestly, because I started having thoughts of like, wait, what do I actually think? What do I actually believe? What does the science say? That is such better thinking than the fear. I was so in fear when I walked into AA. My best thinking is not dominated by fear. Fear can inspire thoughts that might be good, but my best thinking isn't like inflamed with panic, with survival mode, and with fear. 100%. That's bullshit. All right. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.